Hey guys, it's Nicole. I'm back with another video, and this video is going to be about a certain celebrity that was very popular with my generation back in the 2000s. And some news has come to light that I thought would be interesting to talk about because I don't think it's something we all have heard about. At least I haven't heard about it, but I like that it's being talked about. So this is going to be about Kevin Jonas. So for those of you who do not know, when I was growing up, there was a very popular boy band with three brothers called the Jonas Brothers, and they were very popular here in the US, and I don't know exactly how popular they were or still are with the entire world, but they did start as a group. They since split up and they've had like solo careers, except for one of the brothers, Kevin Jonas, who this video is about. And recently it's come to light that apparently Kevin Jonas actually lost all of his money following the Jonas Brothers split. And we're going to talk about that a little bit because I think that happens a lot more than we think when any kind of celebrity, whether they're in music or film or TV or any kind of, stuff like that, when they lose their money, and they don't really talk about it a lot. I think it does happen because, we'll usually hear about it kind of like this after the fact, you kind of get interviews with this certain celebrity talking about, yeah, I lost all of my money back then, and that's why I started doing these projects because I could finally make some money and pay off my debts. And so that's the thing, is that I think a lot of people may think that, celebrities are just always rich because they just always somehow make money just from being famous. But that's not true. They have to work to make money too. Just being famous doesn't make you money. So here in this particular article, this is just a short little thing from Variety that I found, but they kind of talk about in this article how the Jonas Brothers they did a reunion tour. Like they kind of got back together. They're not really like together making a lot of music these days, but they did have like a reunion tour back in 2019. And it actually says that this actually came at a really good time for Kevin Jonas because he was really in financial stress at that point. He says in the article that before then he had invested money in properties and investments, and according to him, basically, he just kind of got into it with the wrong people or person. And therefore basically lost all of his money. I think it says, even here, it says like down to the 10% left. So we only had like 10% of his entire money that he had after everything that he went through with all of those investments that went wrong. And I think that happens to a lot of people. That happens to people that are not famous, and that obviously happens to people that are famous as well. But good for him that it worked out because, he has a family to support and he's got, bills to bills to pay. And, thankfully he managed to make some money from the tour. So he wasn't so hard. He wasn't in such a hardship with his money. But, he describes that when he started the investing process and that ended up making him lose his money, he says that it started happening around 9 years ago. And it also says that he was building things at the time. So maybe he was building things on the properties that he invested in. But he obviously got into it with the wrong people and lost basically all of his money. So he ended up being, pretty thankful that they got back together because they originally split in 2013, it says. I could not tell you the exact date that the Jonas Brothers split up because, let me put it this way, I liked the Jonas Brothers back when I was younger, but they were not the artists that I listened to basically really consistently. And I know that they were really popular with all of my friends back in the day and even still today. But I could not have told you what year it was that they split up. But apparently it was 2013. And then they ended up reuniting in 2019 to celebrate their 20th anniversary from when they started the group originally. So the tour was called Jonas 20 Living the Dream. And they thankfully got a second shot. It says that Kevin Jonas said, "Thankfully for life in general, like we have a second shot and bite at the apple with the band coming back together." He even says, "I learned this lesson, never wanted to learn it, but I did. But then at the time, reevaluated how to approach life from that perspective and looking to the future." So he kind of talked about this on a podcast where he kind of reevaluated life and how he sees like making money and like how everything goes, you know, with all of the money troubles he had. And, you know, I think that maybe that also had something to do with it because they weren't just bandmates, they were brothers, you know. I think that there's a definite possibility that, you know, Kevin would have been talking to his brothers and they possibly knew about his debts, and that might have made them more willing to get the band back together because the other two bandmates, Nick and Joe, ended up going their separate ways and basically going kind of solo. Not necessarily Joe so much, because Joe ended up, I don't want to say formed, he joined another band. I literally just had the name in my head of the other band that he joined, and now I don't remember what it's called. But he joined another band as a lead singer in that band, and Nick ended up going solo. So the two of them were doing, I'm pretty sure, very well financially. Touring, making music, and I think that they were making a lot of money personally. So I don't know how much a reunion tour would have like done for the two of them. So I think that the reunion tour came from a place of, yeah, this would be nice, like to kind of reminisce and get the band back together, but it's really also a way to help our brother Kevin because he is certainly struggling right now. And they were a good group. Like, don't get me wrong, I really enjoy their music. I never saw them in concert. I don't necessarily have them like on my most listened to in my songs, but they are a good group. They make good pop music. I did watch their show a little bit. They had a brief run, a show on Disney Channel, I want to say in like the 2000s or 2010s, called Jonas. And I did watch that a little bit because I was a Disney Channel kid at that time. And it was cute. It was funny, you know, just like any other Disney Channel show back in those times. And I think that the group is good. Like, I did like the Jonas Brothers. They were not my favorite personally. I just liked other kinds of music and other kinds of artists. So they did really have good music, and it was probably a good financial decision, at least for Kevin, to have the reunion tour. But it was probably also some, you know, nostalgia, because that was really where they all got their start. You know, they were all musicians and they all decided to start a band together, and that's how they made all their money and their fame at the beginning. So I think it was really great that it worked out for Kevin Jonas so well, because I kind of wonder what he would have done if they hadn't been able to do the reunion tour. You know what I mean? Because he would have had to figure out something. He wasn't really doing that well financially, and so he would have had to find some other kind of work to make up for that. So I kind of wonder what he might have done, you know? Now I kind of wonder what would have happened if they hadn't been able to tour. Would he have tried to join a different band? Because he sung a little bit in the Jonas Brothers in the band, but he mostly played guitar. So would he have tried to join another band and play guitar? Because I don't know what other skill sets would be. Not that he doesn't have any, but come on, like, I only know him for music, so I don't know what else he could do. But you can't help wonder. It's like, I wonder what would have happened if they hadn't been able to tour again, because clearly it, like, changed his life from then on. It, like, gave him and his family a second chance to make some money and then make smarter decisions with it, because clearly investing in that property and building those things with the wrong partnership was the very wrong decision for them and cost them dearly. So thankfully it worked out for them, but I think it's really cool that he's talking about it. We usually hear these kinds of stories after the fact. I think it's hard for anyone to talk about financial struggles while they're happening. And especially for celebrities, right? Because they are people too. And there's always this notion that they're a celebrity, they must be rich. They have to be raking in some kind of money at some point at all times. Even though it's obviously not the case, because we have heard so many stories of so many different celebrities, from actors and musicians all over, that have gone into crazy debt. They weren't making enough money, or they stopped being able to find work, and then they weren't making any money, and they had to do weird, odd jobs. Or take on weird projects like acting projects or movies or something because they just needed the money. You're like, why did that actor even make that film? Because they needed the money. That stuff happens. So, you know, it's nice hearing about this kind of stuff. I think it definitely puts things into perspective for people, you know, because it's not, being famous is not a check. It is not a guaranteed check for life. And it definitely puts it into perspective for people who are not famous. People who can read the story and go, huh, I guess he's just like us and can fall into financial ruin, almost ruin, at least in his case, just as easily as anybody else. So no one is untouchable in that department, I think, is the story here. But thankfully it worked out for him, and we'll see what happens with them. They had their reunion tour a few years ago, so they haven't really done anything much together. I know that, you know, the other two brothers are still, like, making music and I think doing some acting. I know Nick Jonas did some movies. He was in the two more recent Jumanji movies. I did not see the second one. The first one was pretty good. I liked it. But yeah, we'll hopefully see more of them sometime soon. Like I said, they may not have been my favorite band in the past, but I'd like to see more of them. They remind me of my childhood, so I wouldn't mind seeing them more for sure. But anyway, that is it for this week's video. I just kind of wanted to talk about that a little bit because I thought it was an interesting little tidbit of information. So thank you all so much for watching. I have so many big things coming up that I will be sharing very soon. And I can't wait to be sharing it with you and basically kind of going on the journey with you guys, because I'll kind of take you along for the ride as things change in my life. But thank you all for being here, for interacting with my content. And if you like my content in any way, please subscribe to my channel and definitely share my channel with other people in your life that you think may like my content. I make all different kinds of content, and it usually is something here for everybody, at least. At least I think personally. But I really am just waiting for the right people to find me. So share my channel with anyone you think that might like it. Like this video if you enjoyed it, and comment below what you think. Maybe you were a big fan of the Jonas Brothers back in the day, or still are, or maybe you've never heard of them and you're just like, I don't know, but you're pretty, so I'll listen. But yeah, definitely let me know what you guys think in the comments, and thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all next week.